Oh, wow. How about that? Facebook's working tonight.
Oh yeah.
That was almost instant. Huh.
That's helpful.
Yeah, that's a first. We
One
had.
second. Liz, can you text Claire and tell her to share on the campaign page from my personal or from candidates for the contract or what I'm doing tonight? I think. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we are live and we are here tonight with Justin Dewitt running in Louisiana's 6th district. And Justin is a candidate with a contract signer, an anti-corruption contract. And I'll just let you introduce yourself and maybe why you decided to sign such a contract.
I'm Justin DeWitt. I'm a Democrat running in Louisiana's 6th district, and I decided to run after 2016. We experienced flooding in our capital region, and it was very evident at that time that my representative Garrett Graves is a sellout. He sells out his votes in Congress. It made me embed his record more with net neutrality and things like that. He's pretty much votes right down the line of who's donated for him, and that's what he only cares about. He didn't care about the people who flooded. He didn't care about fixing the flood insurance program across the country that's broke. He didn't care about fixing a duplication of benefits issue before it was a problem. He's reactive, not he doesn't do anything to stop the bad things from happening. And that's flood made that evident, and that's what I decided to run against him and take his seat from him and represent people instead of representing dollars that have been donated to his campaign.
Gee, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? We hear the same thing across the country, and almost all of the candidates with the contract candidates are up against an establishment candidate. And really, it's gotten to a point where it really doesn't matter which party, whether it's a Republican or Democrat. If it's an establishment candidate, they're answering to big money. I like to use Open Secrets. Are you familiar with exactly who all's funding him? Garrett? Is it Garrett? Garrett Graves?
Garrett's funded. Yeah, Garrett Graves. Yeah, he's funded largely by barge companies and things like that. That's why he gets a few projects or claims credit for a few projects that he didn't get. The different departments, like the Corps of Engineers and things. He'll claim those are successes because the construction companies, the barge companies, the shipping, they are donating to his campaign as well. Verizon, all your communication packs, insurance packs. That's why he's not made any move on that. I mean, like you said, Open Secrets is amazing because it'll show you not why. It won't show you that, it won't give you their political answer of why they're voting for things. It'll give you the real reason.
Right.
And why they do those votes.
Right. So I see Edison's Chowist Offshore, ETEL, Energy Transfer Equity, Marathon Petroleum, and Cajun Industries.
And that would be my last one. Was my former employer that I worked for 5 years or so and was fired from for really ridiculous reasonings. But, in our state, we have horrible worker laws. You can be fired at will. We're ready to work for less state, as well as being LBGT, you can be just fired for being that.
Wow. Yes, you are in the deep South. I'm in North Carolina. Not quite the same. Justin, we're having a little bit of trouble with. Are you on a wired or wireless connection? It's freezing a bit. Okay. Are you able to get to a wired?
Probably.
I mean, I'd rather just pause for a minute and let you do that rather than not be able to hear what you say. If you're able to,
Yeah, we can try you now.
Yeah.
Let's see if this works.
It happens. We had that happen last night. Talking with Ryan Trundle, he was great. I know you know him. Yeah. So.
Is that now?
No, we're having audio and video kind of freezing up a bit. A lot of times it's just difficult with wireless.
I do not have access to any other wired. I've tried to.
Okay. Why don't we try? Could you maybe move to a different spot?
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
can try that. We did this. Was that with what was the candidate in Utah? We had to move him around the house a couple times to get a good spot. It's okay. We're high tech here. Yeah, we've got. Can you hear us? Your picture's frozen now. But oh, there you are. Okay.
I couldn't hear anything. Let me
Okay.
step outside and see if that helps.
Okay.
Sorry about that. It's late, late day. So
Yeah. Well, we can talk about the people having internet in rural places like Louisiana, where a lot of people, like Ryan talked about last night, a lot of people still don't have internet, and I know that's alien to lots of people that live in the big cities on the coast. It's just they have no idea. Have never even been through.
Yeah, that's part of infrastructure. I talk a lot about infrastructure as far as the highways, the water pipes, our flood control, our internet, our electric, our utilities. All that's part of infrastructure. And the president came out a while back saying he wanted $1 trillion spending package on infrastructure. Well, I support $1 trillion in spending package, not the one that he proposed, where states fork 80% of the bill, so they can raise. It's just way that they make their states raise the taxes on instead of the federal government.
Right.
Ah, okay. So, I mean, but you are in pretty deep Trump territory, would you say?
Well, I'm running against a Republican that is not Trump. Trump is favored in my state and in my district as well. But like I'll point out in the 2016 election, several tens of thousands voted for voted for President Trump and didn't vote for my opponent. My opponent's known, as you would think. It's a very red district on paper. And the thing is that every year that my opponent's had to run, he's been able to ride the coattails of other Republicans. There's a Senate race on the ticket, or there's the governor or the presidential. This year, there's not. He doesn't get to ride that. That only happens once every 12 years in Louisiana.
Okay. So he's kind of locally very unpopular. Is that what you're saying?
It's not even necessarily unpopular. He's unheard of. No one knows who he is because he's just not, in your face. We have Senator Kennedy. I'm sure you've seen him. Very annoyingly trying to be hokey and Southern, but I don't know if that noise is making a problem for you, but
a little bit.
There we go. Okay. Senator Kennedy was very loud and very obnoxious and makes this little whips all the time and kind of takes up a lot of news time. Garrett Graves doesn't. He's just dull, boring, and I talk to Republicans in my district, and most of them go, "You're running for what now? Congress? Okay. What district is that, or what seat is that? The 6th? Who's the congressman?" And I'm talking to them. They're in this district. So he's very unknown. People just went down the ballot and hit R.
Well, that's the problem, I think, nationwide. And I always mention this. I'm formerly guilty of the same thing. I mean, our media doesn't pay much attention to, local stuff or state races. It's just every 4 years. Maybe it's a little bit more now. I guess there's a lot of attention on these midterms. But typically speaking, people won't know who their own representatives are, and they only pay attention to the big races. So that needs to change, because that's where the change happens. It's got to start locally.
Absolutely.
So what is your story? How did you get started? You said you used to work at what was this industry? What exactly do they do?
I worked at Cajun Industries for a few years.
Okay.
I've been I graduated high school, and then I went into the workforce because as a person with ADHD, I was pretty done with school at the time, and my dad also told me, if you want to go to college, you better get a scholarship, or you better take out some loans. And seeing my friends do that, thinking, I don't want to pay that back. Glad I didn't do it now. So I've been working my entire adult life. I've had a full-time job since I was actually 14 years old. I don't know if that was actually legal, but I mean, I worked at stocking stores. I've done mowing grasses. I bought my first car by saving it up and doing that. I had that ability. But I've worked my entire life. I went into the field of surveying when I was 18, right out of high school. And I've been doing that ever since. I've done flood walls in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, the levee systems there. I've done every highway you can think of in my state, all kinds of different surveying projects. So I've seen infrastructure and flood control and things like that up close. I see the plans of it. I lay it out so they can build it. Uh, my opponent went to 3 or 4 colleges in 6 years, didn't graduate, and it just amazes me that you have that much of a elitist that you can go to college for 3 or 4 years, not graduate, flunk out of them, I assume, and then your dad can pay for all that because his dad owned an engineering company. So that's where Garrett's got his political ties. He was the guy. But me, I got married in 2015 to my husband, and we've been married since then, as well as 2016 was our flood, which threw us completely by surprise and pretty much changed the day-to-day life that we had. And I decided to put my hat in the ring because I'm sick and tired of at one point you got to put up or shut up and do it. You got to get out and fight it, or you can just continue to just rant about it on Facebook or Instagram. But if you're not running for an office, putting up or shutting up is either running for an office or voting and making sure everyone votes. That's the key way we kind of combat. And I chose the other way I have a bunch of people that said, I always wanted to run for an office because I follow politics, being gay in the South. They typically use you as a scapegoat, like George Bush did back in the day, and our state made a constitution, all that. And then a group of friends through a grassroots organization said, we'll be your infrastructure and foundation if you want to make a run. And I said, let's do it.
Wow. So do you deal with a lot of bigotry? Do you think it's worse in the Deep South? Is it, I'm sure it's age related too. I think younger people don't care. But do you face that much?
For the most part, it's the very ultra-conservative rule over the age of 60 in my experience. More people have actually kind of paused at the fact that I'm a Democrat than the fact that I'm openly LGBT. And it's been harder for them to say Democrat. Well, I answer with them, well, I don't have the National Party assisting anyone in the state of Louisiana. So as far as if you want to just talk about national, if you demonize the National Party, I have nothing to do with that. The DCCC is completely useless in my opinion. And I wouldn't suggest anyone in my state of Louisiana or anyone in the South for that matter give a dime to the DCCC. DNC, yes. Your local state party, yes. But the DCCC, don't give them a dime because they're pretty useless.
Well, they're useful in coming in and hurting the grassroots candidates from what we've heard across the country. But yeah, part of what I love about these contracts is it really is cutting across party lines. And I think it is so, we have plenty of people. We've had some in our chat. They're probably happy tonight because we've got a Democrat on. But we've had, a Green Party candidate and they're just angry. Or an independent and they're angry because they want the blue wave. And then there are the other people that, they hear Democrat and they're angry. And I think it's just, you got to just look past that and look at the candidate, examine the candidate, see what they stand for, because each of you have different reasons. This is a huge country. It's different situations in every state. And so if that's your best shot, running as a Democrat, I think that works. In other places, an independent might.
Yeah. Here, independent, we have 1/3 of our voters are registered independent, but no one votes independent. Those are just people that don't want to be quote unquote affiliated with a party. But for me, the party has always just been the Democratic Party. Me being a Democrat is just the foundation of your principles and your aspects of your platform. It doesn't represent your platform because Democrats vary, Republicans vary, and Green Party members vary. Everyone gets stuck on the foundation, the Democratic foundation, when they don't look at the rest of the building that's a skyscraper of the platform that I have and other candidates have.
Gotcha.
Well,
we do have a quick question from the chat. Someone wants to know if you had any issues getting media access there.
Yes, actually, I've had a lot of media exposure beginning when I made my announcement in December of 2017, and then sporadically throughout, a lot of online and national grassroots and things like that. But as far as like your television media, they're completely they don't run you that often because you're not buying their advertisement like the sellout ones that are sellout incumbents. So they have lacked a report, but I would like NPR is having me on for the 3rd time this Friday. My local NPR.
Oh, great.
But as far as your standard television media, absolutely. They've abandoned all. They're actually. It looks to me that they've done it to everyone in my state that's not a rich incumbent that's spending tens of thousands on their media buys.
Mm-hmm. I've always thought at some point, you can only just saturate the market so much with all those awful ads, and people aren't listening anymore. They don't want to hear it. Even people I talk to that really don't pay a lot of attention to politics, they do have that to say. They're fed up with the negative ads, and they just tune it out. So at some point, let them spend all that money. It's just a waste,
Well, unfortunately for people like me as a younger Democrat running in a South, the typical the 60 plus rural voter that would not like me because I'm gay and wouldn't vote for me anyway, most likely probably still has television services, and majority of people under 30, 40 years old in my area has dropped that way long ago. So it's a waste of money to contact voters that wouldn't only vote against me.
Right. Well, during the primary, I remember the 2016, the Democratic primary, there was they kept talking about that line there of 45 and under, and that was the Hillary-Bernie split at the time, really. But I think it also showed a lot of other things. It was, 45 and under weren't watching TV, and maybe they were watching TYT or other, YouTube channel, independent media. But that split, I think, is really very telling, and you can tie it to other things too. I think economically, where people are, the housing market, the student loan debt, all of that, because that's that split. That's where younger people just experience things differently. There's the disappearing middle class. It's not the same experience. Yeah, when Hillary says she worked her way through college, it's kind of almost comical because that's not possible now.
No, not at all. And it's funny you mentioned the primaries, those primaries. I don't know if any of the other candidates from Louisiana you've spoken to have explained our really complex elections here in Louisiana. Have anyone explained it? Well, we have on November 6th, that is what is called the Louisiana's primary elections on November 6th. What we have in our system is that every single candidate, Republican, Democrat, Independent, are all on the same. There is no primary to have only one of each. Everyone that qualifies with the Secretary of State's office is on the ballot on November 6th. And what happens is if someone doesn't get 50% plus one vote, the top two vote getters go into a runoff on December 8th. That doesn't mean there is always a runoff, though. If someone gets 50% plus one vote, it's over with. So that's how Republicans have recently, the past decades or so, have disenfranchised Democratic voters by, one of my former employers that was on Garrett's top donation list has bought elections by paying candidates to qualify to split votes. So what he'll do is he'll buy a Democrat that is, quote unquote, a Democrat, and get their name on the ballot. So two Democrats, one Republican, and bam, we have him elected. I mean, they're buying our school board elections because they now get to decide. Our school board decides how much of the tax they have to pay, the chemical companies have to pay. That's how our elections are screwy. That's one of the reasons the DCCC wouldn't endorse me or any other candidate, because you haven't had your primary election yet. I'm the first openly gay person endorsed by the state of Louisiana's Democratic Party, or any party, period. And I'm endorsed by the state. That should be enough to get a D-Trip endorsement.
I did notice that. Now that you mention it, I didn't know all those details, but I did see that Louisiana on November 6th, and I was confused. Thank you for explaining that.
We're the only state that does that.
Okay. All right. Well, I also I like to go back, speaking of the Democratic primary. I think it just kind of shows the populist wave that happened across the country. And one of the things that was always very curious to me, I guess it was just the word socialism, but Bernie just didn't do very well in the Deep South. And so I'm looking at this now. Actually, let me do a screen share. My favorite little tool now here. Okay. So I just think it's really interesting to go back and look and see. So you're down here. What are some of the counties? It's right around here, right?
Go to the capital, Baton Rouge.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
That's my parish, or we call them parishes, yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty heavy, 78 to 19. What was your sense, during that, what you heard, as far as like why, was it just that word socialism? Do you feel like
Yeah.
that?
Honestly, in my experience in Louisiana, it wasn't even that they knew who Bernie was. It was just that the Clintons were uh, a daily name that everyone that's a Democrat knew here. And our primaries, unfortunately, only the older Democrats show up to vote. So you have a lot of people that remember that they were voting in the Clinton for election, as well as Bill from New Orleans area. So she's commonly with the Dewitt party. So a lot of parties favor went that way. Bernie was, a lot of people just didn't even know who it was. And if they did, it was the socialism word associated with. More Republicans are demonizing him for that one here than Democrats.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Wow. So,
but I did vote for primary.
Okay. I'm not surprised. So, last night when I talked to Ryan Trundle, he talked a lot about the poverty rate in his district. Is that something? I think he said it was 30%.
He has a higher poverty rate in his district than I do. My median income is actually a lot higher. We have a lot of more college graduates. I think median income in my district is $60,000 or $58,000 a year. We have a lot of chemical industry and medical workers in my district. One of the biggest problems is, though, that the corporate interests, like the poverty level in his district, is from jobs not being there and systematic racism keeping certain people under the poverty level. Here it's that way as well too, but more or less of the companies not paying their fair share. In Louisiana, the taxpayer has to pay more. We have like the highest sales tax in the country, and that's not good. We also we have just this really messed up way of letting companies not pay taxes by saying they've created jobs, so they get tax deferral, they don't have to pay it. And it's usually the petrochemical industry, which other sources will show, no, they're a net loss. They don't actually create jobs. They create construction jobs to build it, and then it takes 3 guys to maintain it. That's not an investment. And that's a lot of what we have, the issue of.
So they're big employers there then, the petrochemical.
They are very big, but actually petrochemicals like number 2 or 3. My district, a lot of people are employed by the government because we're at the capital city. As well as a lot of people employed in healthcare and healthcare administration. We also have what's called Cancer Out, stretching from Baton Rouge all the way down to New Orleans along the river, which my district is gerrymandered, but the people who work in those plants, a lot of them live in my district, and cancer rates are ridiculously high.
Yeah,
it's very unhealthy.
Yeah, and I think it's just not immediate enough. I think sometimes people don't make those connections. I mean, they kind of might know, of course, a lot of cancer is environmental, but they maybe don't know exactly who's polluting where. So, I mean, the more information about that comes out, the better. It's across the country. We interviewed a candidate, Mindy Mesmer, in New Hampshire. That was New Hampshire, right? She's an environmental scientist, and she... Brian helped me out here. I don't remember all the details, but she talked a lot about how like a landfill would be like with all this toxic waste and stuff would be partly owned privately and partly by the city, and just all the problems with that, and how it's just been sort of shoved under the rug for decades. And now, people are getting sick. We've got to do something about it.
We have a similar landfills, privately and publicly owned as well. Also, the chemical companies releasing way more of the nasty pollutants they're not supposed to in way massive numbers and not reporting it. Like, there's no cancer data down in Narco, Louisiana, which is the cancer, like one of the worst places. That's where General Honore, if you remember him, he was after Hurricane Katrina. He led the operation in Hurricane Katrina. He was the general on television telling everyone to put their guns down, stop pointing them at American citizens.
Okay.
He's been championing that issue down here. And there's a lot of, they won't even report the data. And then they'll release chemicals, God knows what. And they're also drilling into, Baton Rouge sits on one of the best aquifers in the country because it's a very long sand aquifer that basically bears off the water. Very good stuff. And these chemical companies are now drilling into our aquifer to use it instead of using the Mississippi River water because they have to spend a few cents more to get the dirt out of the water so they can use it to cool their systems. Not to drink, just to cool their systems. And they're drilling into our very good aquifer.
We just need to clone Aaron Brockovich, I believe. I mean, it's like, oh, it's just awful. But, and people are, if that's they're employed by these companies, that's their livelihood. It's a lot of what we run into when we talk about military spending and cutting military spending. If people are employed by the military, then they're not on board with that. So, actually, you froze, but I'm going to assume you can still hear us, right? Okay. So what is how do you feel about military spending, and do you feel we should cut it, or
I feel that military spending is we spend way too much. We need to cut it. I mean, I used to say Republicans always like to say that cut waste, fraud, and abuse. Well, I believe there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the military budget. We spend more than every other country, the top 20 combined. We all know those numbers. Well, I'm not for cutting the military spending for the soldiers' pay or for such things as armor for them. It's a shame that we have soldiers getting shot when we have billion-dollar drones. And so if they want to invest in better equipment to not put soldiers in harm's way, well, let's keep that part of the budget. But ordering tanks for no reason just so you can have your defense contractors spend and make some money, that's ridiculous. And I rumor we could cut that, but House wants to go after Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, all those things, and blame you for it. But we'll see. Their lives can only go so long before they hang themselves.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me how Republicans say the same thing over and over again. Every program, everything is on the table to be cut, except for military, and they won't really give you a reason other than, well, we have to spend that. We have to keep the country safe. Oh, yeah. But I don't understand how.
It's the reason they don't want to cut it. That's who's greasing their pockets.
Right, but even just voters, you hear the same. Just regular people when you say, well, why isn't that on the table to be cut? Also, there's so much spent there, and it's just not part of the equation. I don't know.
Some people. A lot of working people, they say they don't have time for politics, and I understand that sometimes. Like, I get it. If you're working all the time, you come home, you got to make food, and it's just, it is important, and I understand that people are busy. I think we need to find ways to ingrain that into people's lives. Like, I make things personal when someone tells me they don't vote or they don't pay attention to something. I will, if I know them well enough, I will make that issue and describe it in an example to them and make it personal. Like, they don't care about medical insurance. Well, you don't. Well, your mother's disabled. Well, if they pull her insurance, what's she going to do? That kind of thing.
Right. You can usually reach people on some level, on some issue. But I think, it is true that people are, working 2 or 3 jobs. They don't have time to keep up with all of these topics. And unfortunately, our media is not exactly doing a great job of educating people the way, we used to have a 30 minutes to an hour, evening news where you could be informed. And now you turn it on and it's just, pundits yelling at each other for ratings. So you don't exactly learn much from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you run into a lot of people that are non-voters that just say they don't?
Yes, I do. But Louisiana we have a not normal high level of people that are registered to vote in Louisiana, and a lot of people do vote. We have a big turnout in our elections usually, which is why this year is a little different. It's the midterms with nothing higher on the ballot, so it's going to be a low turnout, expected low turnout for our state, which favors the Democrat. But that's all we'll find out. Early voting actually started today in Louisiana, so first votes are being cast, and we'll see how it continues to go. But there are a lot of non-voters that just tune it completely out. Even people I know, and they're like, "I'm still not voting. I don't want jury duty. I don't get into that." And I'm like, "Well, I don't want to hear you complain when your taxes go up, or your mom doesn't have health insurance, or your house floods again and you can't get help. I don't want to hear it."
How often do you hear from those same people that they don't trust the election? Do you hear that very often?
I've not heard that a lot. not no, we people. It's not that much of a big deal here that people don't trust the elections. They think that their vote doesn't matter in national elections, like for the president, because I mean, honestly, if you're a Democrat in Louisiana voting for in the 2016 election when we did, it was completely just to make sure you voted to stay regular. It was, you knew Hillary had no shot winning the state.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, I'm looking at. It looks like your let's see, 6th district is the Cook Partisan Voter Index. It's R plus 19. But you do like 2016. So the population from 2010 census was 763,000. And there were 331,000 votes. That's actually pretty high.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times we see like 20%. So
we have 70% or so show up for presidential elections, things like that.
Right.
But also, like I was saying, that many votes were cast, and then our governor is a Democratic governor, John Bell Edwards. He won my district in his election in 2015. He won that. He won my district. Hillary got, I can't remember how many votes, 100 and something thousand in my district, 130. I'm not sure on the numbers, but well more than I need in my district. Louisiana has the votes. It's all about the candidate, but Hillary Clinton was toxic in the state of Louisiana for a long time. Everyone, I mean, the pundits, the talk show people, it's like a brainwashing tactic. They constantly say the lie over and over, and it sticks in people's heads. I get a lot of the conspiracy theory about the Clintons have people killed and things like that whole Rush Limbaugh jargon. Now, borderline Alex Jones psychotic stuff, they say.
Well, we could get into that a little bit. How do you feel, though, about the recent purging from Facebook of all the other media? Have you heard about that?
I'm not sure which one.
It was recent, like last week or so, where I think it was 800, Brian? I think it was 800 different sites where independent news sites were purged from Facebook. It's kind of, it started with, Alex Jones and InfoWars, but they kind of, in this one fell swoop, it's like they include all these independent media organizations that are on the left too. So, yeah.
I'm not a fan of just purging all out just to purge, and you're gonna make mistakes. But I have personally, my campaign, I've personally seen some sketchy things on Facebook and on all my staff's phones of what appears to be something trying to enter our phone. Someone's tried to log into our systems several times. Our voter systems, our vote builder system that we used, or get out the vote from the Democratic Party. My phone personally has been attempted several times. Has been a hack attempt.
Wow.
As well as our website. We can monitor who watches our website. Like it goes to our analytics and shows us. We've had several Russians look at our website. I don't know if they've ever attempted to do anything, but they've looked at it, and no other country but the United States and Russia. That's how the people have looked at my website.
So do you report these things, like where you can see the ISP address or something where it's coming from? Is there somewhere to?
With Facebook, we can report. Like a staffer of mine she had hacked by ISIS. What they do is they send you a Facebook friend request as a normal-looking person, this and that. And a couple of days later, it changes to a full-on ISIS recruitment page, and then they somehow hack your system. I'd get probably 20 messages a day on Facebook Messenger alone of supporters that I know are real people, but that's not their account because they're sending me links to click about my name in CNN article or something. Want me to click it. So that it's a trap. It's a way you get hacked, and I have to avoid that. So, unfortunately, sorry to any of my supporters that sent me anything, and I haven't answered them or looked at their article, is simply because I can't trust them, and I won't do it. And if anyone wants to contact me, they just send messages to our campaign page, not to my person.
Yeah, we're in new territory with all that, and it's
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I did, however, speak to. It's OE something. I can't remember. They're an international organization that oversees elections.
Okay.
I can't remember what the name of that acronym is. It's O something. OEP or OPEC. I think they're based out of Berlin. They're. I spoke with them in person. They were in our state the other day, and I so happened to be right by the state. I'm in the capital, so where the party headquarters is. So they were talking to our party, I believe, and then wanted to speak with me and another candidate, and they're headed to Oklahoma. We spoke with them, and they're traveling the country, overseeing elections, trying to see if any intimidate, just, I guess, watching and learning and writing down information and what people feel and seeing across the country in the election process.
Okay, I'm not familiar with this. I should be. What do you think? It's OEPC?
It starts with an O, I believe, and it has an E
okay.
and a C.
Okay. Out of Berlin. So they're like overseeing elections, like watching.
I think it's something. Yeah, it's something to do with overseeing elections. They not seeing are they're watchers. They watch elections, and I guess that 2016 elections. This is something they do. They're international. I know that, and they're not fake because their credentials were checked by a party. I have their paper somewhere. I just can't remember.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely see if I can find it, and I'll contact you back if I don't find it. I've been trying to help spread the word about some work that Audit Elections USA has been doing, and I would imagine they probably know about this group. I'll ask them. But what they've been doing recently is, they found out that out of like 44 states that have the ability for the voting machines to save the ballot images, and they're required by federal law to save the ballot images, like only 5 states are actually doing it. So yeah. So one of the things I've been trying to help do is encourage candidates. Anyone can do it, actually, not just candidates, but any regular person can file what's called a public records request. And you can do it before the election or after. And basically, they have to show you whatever they have. They should have the ballot images, but they probably don't. Like the state of Louisiana has some of the worst. I believe Sequoia Dominion, I'm just looking at, I believe that's an optical scanner, DRE. So they may not even they might even have.
Yeah, we have like a mash button thing where it's like they take a piece of paper, put it over a big billboard looking thing, and you go in there and you mash one of the light buttons, and I don't think it saves a ballot at all. But I mean, geez, our voting machines are quite old, and they need to be replaced. But we have voter ID laws as well. They're not the worst in the country, and I'm not even against the voter ID law as in the aspect of having them, but I am against you requiring to have an ID and not giving people their free ones. Like you can't charge someone to vote an ID. Like in Louisiana, you got to go pay like $18, $19 to get an ID. You have to go to the DMV to get it as well. I mean, if you want to provide people those rides to the DMV via the bus transit system and then give them their first one for free, that's fine. See, that's an okay. But no, that's not how that works. The Republicans like to make it where they have to spend money and keep poor people from voting.
Exactly. Yeah, and people just don't understand that. Whether it's, lack of transportation or the lack of the internet, they just don't get it that there are large areas of this huge country that is the case. People have trouble getting to the polls. It's not so easy. Maybe they don't drive, so they don't have a driver's license.
Which brings me to the point our excuse and embarrassment of an attorney general in our state of Louisiana. Jeff Landry, this mouthpiece that just likes to run his mouth. I personally do not like that man because he's fighting our governor. Little disclosure, I don't like the man one bit. He's fighting our governor. Our governor put in an executive order saying that you can't fire someone for being LGBT if you have a state contract. And he's fighting that. And government overreach or governor's overreach. And Jeff Landry does not care for the LGBT community. He's a pretty much racist and a vote. The Alton Sterling thing issue we had here, that we watched the shooting that initiated a couple years ago, and Jeff Landry is, without a shadow of a doubt, a scum of the earth to me. But he just said the other day that anyone trying to drive people to the polls, that's not permitted, that's not legal, that you can't do that. Not us, not the campaigns doing it. Other grassroots organizations. And to him, I say, well, prove it. And come at us then. I mean, if people want to drive people to the polls, do it.
Right.
I call his bluff.
Wow.
He's a talking piece that wants to run for governor, but so that's why he's always running his mouth. Just Just your typical politician.
Jeez.
So, what were there any what issues on the candidates with the contract? I know you probably don't have it in front of you, but do you remember any specific items that really drew you to it the most?
Now, forgive me if I'm incorrect, but I've signed so many things, looking at so many things. But
It's okay.
anything to do with the money in politics, getting it out, that's it, because that's the root of all evil in the political system. Money in politics. Like, I am 100% for a sorry, Kim, the term escapes me now, but not being able to take campaign donations, publicly financed campaigns, where each candidate that qualify get a set amount. I'd love to see contributions to political candidates illegal. That would be just the thing of the century. Citizens United, Jesus, that's a disgusting. That is such a lie. I love how they give those nice sounding names to things like Right to Work, Citizens United. No, that's actually the opposite. So just anything a Republican says, assume the opposite.
Really.
But anything to do with the money is the main issue. If you get rid of the money, you get rid of the problem. You want net neutrality solved? Get rid of the money. We'll solve the problem. No more money from Verizon Wireless and Sprint. That's the root of all evil, in my opinion. That's probably what drew me to the contract.
Well, we haven't been able to get any establishment candidates, and that would be Republican or Democrat, to sign, because they do take that money.
No, you won't.
So yeah, exactly.
Even my one Democrat in my state is a sellout as well, just as much as the rest of the Republicans. All 6 of our representatives are sellouts. So I mean, it's not about party. It's about if you look at the donors of the 1 Democrat and the 5 Republicans from my state Congress, same people.
Right. I know, and I think that's what's been hard for some people to really see and accept. Like, I don't know, are we getting any of those comments in the chat tonight, Brian? Well, we have a Democrat on, so.
No, not really. People are just very supportive, and they're just they're tired of the the establishment basically calling the shots.
I would like to add, if anyone out there listening to this or anyone sees it, if anyone wins the $1.6 billion Mega Millions tonight, please take a big chunk of that. I hope it's someone political that wants to, if you can't beat them, you join them thing. Well, if you can use their tactics against them, you could invest so much money and flip states, legislatures, congressional seats in the right way. So if somebody out there that's a liberal and wins that Powerball, Mega Millions, please do put that money to good use. Because I know if I won it, I would be spending it to flip my state and other districts across the country.
So about Citizens United, it was Ryan Trundle last night. I said you should make it a bumper sticker. He said if corporations are people, then you should throw them in jail. They should be able to be thrown in jail.
Also,
if they do things,
people, then I like to see them come to the poll and vote.
Yeah, I mean, if they're polluting and giving people cancer, then yes, I mean that should be it. That should be a thing. So make it a bumper sticker.
I love that. I know Ryan personally is a good guy. We talk all the time. I'm in agreement with him. And as like I said, if corporations are really people, then let's call them out and come vote in an election. Like, come to the polling booth if you're an actual person. Make the definition of a person someone that has to physically get into a voting booth and able to vote, and end that malarkey.
So, what are the other top issues in your district, or what do you hear most? Is it Medicare for all? Is it jobs? What are the things you hear most?
Pretty much, it's a lot to do with healthcare. We were one of the states that expanded the healthcare after the Affordable Care Act. Our governor did that. It was his first act when he got in, and thank God he did it. And
so he took the Medicaid.
Elected, and he's a Republican. Yes, he took it. His first. That was the first thing he did. As well as healthcare issue is the big number one thing of cost and getting it affordable, things like that. And then second's our infrastructure. We have like the worst traffic for a city our size in our country. And I know a lot of people may say that, but people go home from Baton Rouge to go 10 miles down the interstate, it will take 45 minutes. to go 10 miles in a dead stop crawl. I have one Mississippi River Bridge and the I-10, and we just had a barge strike a bridge that's south of our capital city and put it out of commission for months. So infrastructure and the flooding issue. My opponent wants to keep on with this flood insurance. Yes, excuse me. I don't like it. I don't affect it. I want to change the flood insurance program to a disaster, to where everyone in the country gets to, if you own property, you get disaster insurance. It covers floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, everything. So every property pays, everybody's in it. It makes the system work, and then it also covers everything. Take it out of the hand of the insurance companies.
Well, you look at that, I'm sure it's not much different than the way health insurance companies work. They would just want to collect premiums, and we shouldn't be battling them to pay out when it's actually needed. Yet that's what happens constantly.
And I'm in favor of the Medicare buy-in system because, I mean, if you allow right now in the Affordable Care Act, we give people subsidies to afford their premiums and afford their health insurance that are low income. Why don't we just let them get into the system we already have and cut the profit the insurance company out? Because there's profit.
Yes.
And profiting over people living and breathing and having a healthy life is un-American, in my opinion, and disgusting. So let's take the middleman out. I don't see what the problem with that is. And insurance companies claim your premiums keep going up because of cost and cost and cost. But look at their record profits on their profits. How are you profiting? And yet your costs keep going up. And you're struggling.
Right.
They're lying.
And I think that's, what people really see in their premiums rising. And they think of Obamacare. I mean, it did do some good things, but the fact is it was still a giveaway to insurance companies. And that's just got to end. And that's definitely...
I pay around $600 a month for me and my husband on my insurance plan. That's what I pay for my premium. And we still have prescription, co-pays, and it's not the worst. And unlike most candidates and most congressmen, like I'd love to deny the guy Garrett Graves I'm running against. If he is elected this time, third term, he gets retirement benefits, like $60-something thousand a year, every year till the day he dies. If he wins this re-election, that's all it takes is 6 years in Congress to get you retirement benefits. Well, I make $50,000 a year. I make $25.50 an hour at a survey company, and I'm not afraid to tell you how much I make. I'm not afraid to tell you how much I pay in taxes and things like that. I don't see a congressman doing it. I mean, I don't even see the president doing that, obviously, when he releases tax returns. But I'll tell you what I make, and I've never taken a dime. The only non-individual person that contributed to my campaign was a former elected official in North Louisiana, right around Ryan's district. His name is Foster Campbell. His campaign, he ran for Senate last time. He had money left over, and I had for a donation. He gave me $5. That's the only non-individual contribution I have.
So you're all for full transparency and all of that too, I would imagine. So whatever money is given. Yeah.
You were talking about Democrats earlier to pay for. That's how you can tell that Democrats are paid for too. If you collect money like we do through Act Blue, is an organization where people donate on your website and it goes to an organization, Act Blue. Well, if a Democrat like the one in my state hides behind when they have to file their FEC reports, if it's under a certain amount, they don't have to put your name on it. They can just put it under Act Blue check. We don't do that. We put everyone's individual name in, all that information. But your sellout establishment Democrats will just put Act Blue check of $30,000 on this date instead of spelling out every individual that gave it an Act Blue.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard some pushback about Act Blue. As a matter of fact, I know Tim Canova was using Act Blue, and I know that he stopped because he got a lot of pushback about it. I don't think he is using that anymore. But anyway, yeah, people are paying more attention to to the money and following the trail, and how is it hidden? How is it that some candidates can claim, I'm not taking dark money or whatever, I'm not taking super, but then it's just some roundabout way that they figured out how to get around it, so they can say they're not, but they really are. So
oh yeah, I agree completely. And my opponent, being little old me, we raised a little over 30-something thousand the entire time, and we're thrifty with what we use. I mean, we make some things, we do a lot of labor ourselves to cut costs, and we never thought we were ever going to raise as much as the sellout that I'm running against did. But it's just so happened funny. A lot of political pundits and media organizations say you're a long shot or something like that. But my opponent spent $800,000 in the last quarter. If I'm a nobody, why did he spend $800,000? That's more than he's ever spent in a quarter. He ran against an ex-governor his first time and didn't spend that much.
Probably really worried, actually. Because, I mean, ultimately, I mean, we always brag about how our organizations don't take much, we're pretty much broke. And I really think that at some point the money just becomes a moot point. I mean, everyone's sick of hearing the obscene amounts that are spent on these campaigns and on the media. And really all it takes, you know, we always hope we get more eyes on candidates like yourself through things like this. We haven't been put in any Facebook jail yet. So we just keep trying to help get the candidates, you know, out where they can talk directly to the people. And this doesn't cost much at all. This is a Zoom account and, you know, streaming to Facebook. And it doesn't cost to go vote. Well, except, as you said, an ID and you know, getting to the poll. But, I mean, really, we could bypass all of that and imagine what we could do with that money instead. I mean, like you said, crumbling, you know, bridges and schools and all of that. It's just such a waste every election cycle. So,
those are a few jobs I don't want to save. People dealing with that money.
Right. Yeah. So is there anything else that we haven't covered that you want to speak directly to, like any particular just local issues that to anyone that might be watching on your page? Or
sure, we have the amendments on our ballot this November 6th as well. One of them is Amendment 2 for unanimous juries. I think Oregon might have changed or still the same, but we only allow for 10 jurors to convict in cases, and if you do the NPR did a great thing the other day about the history of why it is 100% a racist tactic that was implemented back in the 1800s and then in the 1900s was redone just to keep it was straight up a white supremacist tactic, and finally on the ballot to get rid of it.
Ryan talked about that last night, actually.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That is something very important, and as well as my locals in Louisiana, if we have runoffs, we will be November 6th. If somebody doesn't get 50% plus one in any of 6 congressional districts, we will be the last elections in the country that still haven't set their congressman yet. So you would definitely hear a lot more about us if one of us makes a runoff or wins outright, because no intention from the national party, so that would still make headlines there. So in my website's Dewitt for Congress, we have a lot of stuff there. We've also got some cool videos. We like to entertain you and inform you of voting. Like we have a little It video thing, a little play on it, look at the Facebook page. It's a little Halloween themed thing, as well as we don't stray from questions. I answer questions. I don't like to do political work around that politicians do, because I'm not a politician. I'm a normal person that works at a survey company.
That's awesome. That's great. So have there been any debates?
No, my opponent will not answer my call for debate, and even our Republican-leaning organization here in Louisiana called Hayride did an article, and they even called him out for not accepting it. Oh, my opponent is completely gutless. He's very fearful of anything. I mean, he's just hollow. He doesn't even hold. I've held more town halls than he has held in 2 years. He held a public town hall in 2017. Wow. He hides behind town hall lives. But that does too. But other than hiding, I just couldn't afford the venues like he could.
Right. Yeah, we hear this over and over again too. They don't exactly want to debate the grassroots candidates,
because they know their lies are harder to available in person, live, and on the spot.
Right.
They love to hide behind a camera and make a video about we're here for God, country, and this and this and that. The typical talking points, the typical maneuvers.
Right, and when they can get the corporate media spin on their side in some way, then they can dodge questions. You watch these interviews and the pundits, they don't even really hold them to, they ask them a question and they don't answer it and they don't hold them to it. you know?
Yeah, because they benefit from their media bias. That's
Right.
typically why they do. I mean, it's conflict of interest.
Yes. And so, you know what? That brings me to I guess my final question. I'll give you a tough one. So are you aware of Andrew Gillum and his sort of flip? We'll call, oh, not sort of. He seemed to be all for Medicare for all. Well, now all of a sudden he is kind of changing what he's saying, and is now backed by, you know, the Democratic machine, we'll call it, and he's sort of changing his rhetoric around it. What is your feeling on that? As running as a Democrat, what would you do if you were, if you win and then you were offered money to change your message?
Flip. First off, that was news to me. I've been like a eye on my election. I haven't really looked at any others, but thank you for the explanation of it. He's downright dishonest and never be elected to public office. No one should vote for him if he's done that. If money was offered to me in a similar manner, I would tell you to go where you were in the first place. If I'm elected I've done this on grassroots and my people, we've done this. I'm not selling out and letting somebody come in and buy in after we've made the hard work. It's number one. Number two, I don't flip my opinions. I don't flip my policies. I see you're frozen. Am I frozen?
You were a minute ago. I'm not
Okay.
sure where the
sorry,
problem. No, it's okay. I think it's on your end, but it's okay.
No, I won't flip, and you shouldn't vote for him if he did do that. And like if I win my election on November 6th or win a runoff, and I get to Washington, and I'm supposed to make that in the booth calls for DNC or DCCC to raise money. Negative. I'm not raising the DNC one red dime, and I'm not taking one red cent from anybody that wasn't part of this already. I am bought by my voters. My voters own my vote. It's not my vote in Congress, it's theirs. I'm representing their interests, not mine. I mean, even if I disagree with something that the majority of my district wants, I'm going to vote the way they want, regardless, if it's the right thing to do for the district as well. Because, I mean, they're not always informed of the dirty tactics, the misleading language, but I'll never take a dime from anyone that wants to corrupt me. You can't corrupt me. I've been a gay man in the South for my entire life. I'm not afraid to open my mouth and tell you how I feel, because that's how I've survived my life. I'm not going to sit there and take money from corporate sellouts. I'm not going to be one of them, ever. And I would never vote for that person. What was his name again?
It's Andrew Gillum in Florida.
Andrew Gillum. Don't vote for him. Just vote for anybody else besides that.
This is why the Democratic Party keeps getting so much criticism, is the people that are really watching. It seems, when there is this great candidate and you feel like, oh, they're for the people, the Democratic Party machine comes in and just sucks them up and like, oh, we're going to take your, all your followers and just co-opt it and turn it into the same old stuff, funded by big bucks.
That's what they're waiting. They're waiting for you to win. Yeah, they're waiting for you to win an election or you do something wrong, and they just come in and you think it's a good thing when you hear them, but it's really not. Oh, we're going to help you get this and that. Oh, that's fantastic. Like the cavalry finally coming to your aid. No, they're trying to ride off your coattails.
Exactly.
That's exactly what they're very good at.
Right.
I mean, they come to my state to raise money for out-of-state candidates in Texas and other states, not Beto, other candidates running for Congress. My congressman, not my congressman, but our Democrat from our state raised money for him and the DCCC. Didn't raise 1 cent, didn't give one donation or 1 ounce of help to any other Democrat in the state. But yet he says we need to flip the House in a blue wave this year. He's an embarrassment. His name's Cedric Richmond. I do not care for that man with his one side of his mouth. He's talking out about unity and getting this country on the right track. And the next side, it's companies in his back pocket and he's sold out. He's complete useless sellout.
It's good to call people out. I mean, I think especially you just give people the facts and where the money, who's funding them. And always, anybody that's watching, check out Open Secrets on any candidate you're interested in. And you mentioned something that made me, I have to, before we go, mention this, that I heard about from Nick Thomas, independent in Colorado, something called proxy vote. Have you heard of that?
Not in an election, but I mean a proxy vote inside of a party.
Okay, Brian, do you still have that address. We can put the link down underneath again. It's called Proxy Vote, and it basically allows people to, in real time, sort of have their input on how their representative is voting on something, and will show what their votes are. I'm not really doing it justice, but anyway, check it out.
That website, matter of fact.
Okay, yeah, just check it out. It's the first time I had ever heard. I had heard of something that is actually in Australia called Me Vote, but I hadn't heard about this Proxy Vote. But it sounds very promising. You know, putting that pressure.
There we go. No, I think it's very basic page, greenish and stuff like that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think I've been there before. It's not a lot of bells and whistles, but it's basically the facts of your congressman or your representative, each vote they've had, and keeps you up to date. And tells you on the line of where and why, even when they lied, and things.
Right, and I think this is needed because we can't take our eye off the ball. You know, you great candidates. I mean, I haven't spoken to one yet that signed CWAC or CFAR that I feel like would go sell out, but it's a hard thing to resist, and I think we need to keep our eye on the candidates and make sure they know that, you know, their voters are going to hold them to it. That's the thing about these contracts. You know, if they yes, and they should, absolutely. Well, it was really wonderful to talk to you. Great to talk to Ryan last night. You guys are our first candidates in Louisiana that we've talked to. So, always good to learn. Yeah, it's just great to learn. Each state has different, slightly different issues, but, you know, hearing about the Cancer Alley and stuff, I mean, there's certain parts.
What you guys are doing are truly getting the temperature of the entire country better than your national media is, because they're not talking to every single individual district. You're getting more personal with everything across the country than any other media outlet.
Yeah,
people should definitely keep tuned to you guys.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. There's a lot of good independent media. We have a long way to go to get people tuned in, though, to really what's really happening. But yeah, like especially the environmental pollutants, the Cancer Alley, all this stuff. This should be, you know, front page news all the time, and it's not. It's just buried for, you know, sensational arguing and all of that for ratings. It's not helping inform people. But, okay, well, it was really wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time when you're very busy, and we wish you the best of luck. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have a good night, and thank you all for that.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.